I'm not sure when I first realized I was left-handed or that it was a thing. My great Aunt Sally, who was my paternal grandmother's sister, who was born in the 1880s, and that's not right. She was born in the 1860s, and I don't know if she even went to school or not, but she was left-handed. I think my father may have been left-handed. He had terrible handwriting, but he played non-professional baseball in a league in Knoxville, and he always pitched left-handed. Um, but when I first started out in a little country school, and then we moved, and I attended the school in my grandparents' community, and my grandfather went to school and told the teacher that I was left-handed, and they did not want me to be forced to change. And consequently, I remember vividly the teacher walking by my desk when we were doing our writing practice, and she would say, "I can't help you," and walk right on by because she was irritated that I was left-handed. There was another little girl in my class who was left-handed, and her father owned a business there. He owned a big dairy, and they were more prosperous. And so I don't know if she got treated the same way. I don't know, but it hurt my feelings when I was 6 that the teacher didn't pay attention to me because I was left-handed. Berea is a small liberal arts college, and it was rather hard to get in. But everybody has to work. You cannot go there if you don't work. You only have to work 10 hours a week. So when I got there, I heard other people talking about their jobs, and they were talking about the candy kitchen. So I went down to apply at the candy kitchen. And they said they could not hire me because I was left-handed. And the jobs at the candy kitchen were very intricate. They sold little boxes of tea sugars. They were about 1-inch cubes of sugar. They weren't an inch thick, but they were an inch around, about an inch squared, and then about a half-inch thick. And they were decorated with tiny little flowers. And they said they couldn't train a left-handed person to do that. I always tried as an adult to never try to influence my children or grandchildren. When I stirred their food, I always tried to be very careful to put the spoon in the center of the plate so that it didn't influence them. One of my children is left-handed, the other one is not, and 3 of my grandchildren are left-handed. I'm not sure they all are, but they at least write left-handed. So, and it has been a problem. For example, scissors. We didn't have left-handed scissors, and so I had to cut with right-handed scissors, and I had to learn to do that. And it became very easy, and left-handed with scissors is very awkward to me. My sweet husband bought me a pair of left-handed pinking shears, and it was very hard for me to use them. I did for a while, though, cut with my right hand, pink with my left hand. So that was one of the things. Another problem of being left-handed was taking shorthand, because you write a small column and you have to use ink when you study shorthand. And because of the way I wrote, my hand would smear through the ink, because if you write the way a right-handed person does, you can't see what you're writing. And so you turn your hand so you can see, and then just not going across the whole page made a difference. Table settings are wrong. To reach your glass, you have to reach over your plate, and your sleeve gets in your food. So I always just move my glass to the left-hand side. Playing the violin in college, I had to take a class in violin playing, and it would have been so easy to hold the violin and finger with this hand and bow with this hand, but they wouldn't let me do that. Although I was never going to play in an orchestra, but in an orchestra it would be very awkward because your violin would be bumping the violin of the person over here. So it was just that. School desks. The when the books were underneath you and you had one of those desks with you slid in from one side, I couldn't put my books in at the bottom because the opening was on the wrong side. So there was just a whole bunch of things. My grandmother and my mother, my maternal grandmother and my mother both crocheted and knitted, and they tried to teach me, but I couldn't do it because they couldn't do it left-handed, and I couldn't reverse it in what they were doing. Conducting was another thing that they tried to make me conduct right-handed, and after I taught and was teaching, it never bothered my children that I was conducting left-handed. But my main conducting hand was my left hand. I always did that. So I have made it work, and my mother used to laugh when I would help her cook. She'd say, "You're unstirring it or unwhipping it," when her arm would get tired when she was making whipped cream or by hand, or meringue by hand. I would try to help her, but she stirred one way, I stirred the other way, and she'd say I was unwhipping it. So anyway, it's been interesting. I have not minded being left-handed. Now it's very common when I was teaching, I often would have in a class of 38 left-handed people, and they couldn't believe that they used to make us all change. But I think it was just the uniformity and made it easier for everybody to do that. But anyway, it's been quite interesting.